Hi everybody, Steve here at Oak Hill Cemetery in Ballard, California. It's about 5 minutes north of the town of Solvang, and about 45 minutes north of downtown Santa Barbara. And today I'm here to visit the gravesite of my Uncle Ted. He was my mom's older brother, and he was buried here a couple of years ago. I'm also going to try to find the gravesites of a few very famous people who also happen to be buried here. If you're like me, I think you might also be surprised to learn that they were laid to rest here in this very out-of-the-way and pretty remote, rustic country cemetery. And in case you haven't had a good laugh yet today, before I go in search of the first gravesite, I have to show you this funny sign that I just spotted here at the entrance. So just a heads up, if you're planning to visit in person, leave your donkey at home. I've seen lots of funny cemetery signs, but I can honestly say this is a first. Even funnier is that I can actually hear donkeys in the distance. I passed lots of ranches on the way here, so I guess it's not a big surprise. The first famous grave that I want to try to find today is located near the back of the cemetery and belongs to actor John Forsythe. So I'm here at the gravesite of John Forsythe. His headstone is very difficult to read, and this area of the cemetery was just watered, and for some reason the water is making it even more difficult to read, and there's so many trees here. Look at these trees. I mean, they're beautiful oak trees. I think they're oak trees, but they're providing way too much shade on this grave at this moment. I'm sure it's nice in the summer when it's warm, but this is late fall, early winter, and not a lot of sunlight, which is making it difficult to read John Forsythe's headstone. For those of you who might not be familiar with actor John Forsythe, he had one of the most impressive acting careers in Hollywood, lasting for 6 decades. He appeared in a couple of dozen movies, but he's probably best remembered by most for his popular TV shows. While most actors are never lucky enough to star in even one TV show, Forsythe had the talent and the good fortune to appear in 3 long-running popular TV shows that are all now considered classics. From 1957 to 1962, he starred as Bentley Gregg in the series Bachelor. From 1976 to 1981, he starred as the unseen Charlie Townsend, or Charlie, in the Charlie's Angels TV series. And from 1981 to 1989, he played Blake Carrington on the DYNASTY TV show. He died from pneumonia in the nearby town of Santa Ynez on April 1st, 2010, at the age of 92. Since time and age and weathering have nearly erased his name from his headstone, I wouldn't have been able to find his gravesite without the helpful GPS on his Find a Grave memorial page. I sure hope his family will replace this headstone with one that's legible. I'm sure all of his fans would appreciate it. In the same section and just a few yards away from John Forsythe's gravesite is the final resting place of the famous Girl of 1965. Edie Sedgwick. I knew that she was buried here because I found her Find a Grave memorial page, which said that she was here, but there was no information about which section she was in. There was no GPS. There was no information about how to find her grave, so I really didn't think I'd be able to find her today. So I thought, well, since I'm here, I'll just walk around a little bit. And so while I'm walking around, I happened just to look down, and there was Edie Sedgwick's headstone. Another happy accident. That's the second time in 2 weeks that that's happened. Very rare, very unusual, and definitely made my day. Back in the 1960s, you might say that Edie Sedgwick was the Paris Hilton of her time. She was a socialite from a very prominent family, and according to her Find a Grave memorial page, her great-great-great-grandfather, William Ellery, was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. A fashion icon and an actress, she appeared in a number of Andy Warhol films back in the 1960s and became known as one of his superstars. She was so hot, as Paris Hilton would say, that Life magazine put her on their cover as the Girl of 1965. She was born on April 20th, 1943 in nearby Santa Barbara and sadly died in Santa Barbara at the young age of 28 on November 16th, 1971. Her cause of death was an accidental prescription drug overdose. And I'll continue to pan around here so you can get a better idea of what the section where she's laid to rest looks like. After all of these years, I'm pleasantly surprised to see that fans are still visiting her gravesite and leaving personal mementos. And I just added a GPS to her Find a Grave memorial page to make it easier for other fans who might also want to visit in the future. Another famous person laid to rest here in this cemetery is television personality Ralph Story. He's buried in the Annex 6 section, which is near the middle of this cemetery. And his headstone is very easy to read, and I really love his epitaph, which reads, "Peace Correspondent." And you may have noticed that I start off most of my videos, Steve here, and then I mention where I am. I had forgotten that Ralph Story used a similar greeting on his TV show, and it's fun to see it on his headstone. I guess I was more influenced by Ralph's story than I even remembered. One of my favorite programs that he hosted was called Things That Aren't Here Anymore, about Los Angeles area landmarks that are sadly no longer around. It was definitely an early trip down memory lane show and an inspiration for my YouTube travel channel. He also had a TV show from 1964 to 1970 called Ralph Stories Los Angeles, which documented the history of LA. Some of you game show lovers, and I know there are many of you out there watching, may remember that back in 1956, Ralph Story hosted the popular game show The $64,000 Question on CBS. It was canceled in 1958 after allegations of cheating, which led to a major scandal. Story was not implicated in the controversy and went on to a very long and successful career in television. He died from emphysema in Santa Ynez on September 26, 2006, at the age of 86. In the next section over to the right of Ralph Story's gravesite is the section where my Uncle Ted's cremated remains are buried. He was my mom's older brother and lived much of his adult life with his family here in the Santa Barbara area. He died in 2015, just 8 days short of his 81st birthday. And last year, just before my mom had her stroke, we were planning to make a trip up here together to visit his final resting place. Unfortunately, she's no longer able to travel and hasn't even really left the house since she had her stroke a year ago this month, other than her one trip to the emergency room this past summer when she fell down and hit her head and needed stitches. She's 85 years old now and outlived her brother and lived to be much older than her mother or her father. And for all of you who have asked about her, it's definitely a roller coaster of good days and bad days. But my brother recently retired and moved in with her full time, and I know that's helped quite a bit. I'm happy to see that my uncle is in such good company here, and I only wish that my mom had been able to visit when it was still possible. And thank you to all of you who have recently asked about her. This week, I also want to give a shout out and a very big thank you to my newest Patreon supporter, Kelly D. I also want to thank Dr. J.B. Dingy for recently increasing his pledge. Thank you so much, Kelly and Dr. J.B., for your generosity. It really does help support these trips. And of course, thank you to all of my new subscribers, too. Subscribing helps the channel more than you could ever know and is very appreciated. So if you enjoyed today's trip down memory lane, I hope you'll join me on another one by clicking and watching this one here. Till next time, thanks for sharing the memories, everybody.